This is Bodney Airfield in England, home of the 352nd Fighter Group. It's the 6th of August, 1944. This would turn out to be a record-setting day for the 8th Air Force and Major George Preddy. This video attempts to visualize the story from the book, George Preddy, the Top Mustang Ace by Noah and Sachs. After the August 5th mission, missions were not planned for the next day as the weather was predicted to be rotten. Consequently, there was a lot of partying. George was drinking heavily in the officers' club as he played craps, yelling "Cripes a-mighty" when throwing the dice. He had a big night, won a lot of money, and used it to buy a war bond to kick off a Bodney area war bond drive. He had only been asleep a short while when he was awakened and notified that there was going to be a bomber escort mission to Berlin the next morning. And he was leading the group. Lieutenant Colonel Meyer, the squadron CO, came by Preddy's quarters and realized George was drunk. Meyer offered to take the mission for him. Meyer had been back in the States for some time off and had just returned 4 days before. But George insisted on leading the mission himself. He felt it was his duty. So, just 20 minutes after being informed of the mission, per procedure, Preddy stood on a small coffee table-sized platform to brief the rest of the group. And while describing the mission, managed to fall off. The first time that happened, the group CO said to Meyer, "George is drunk." Meyer responded that it would be several hours before they took off, and he felt sure he could get George in shape to fly. It seemed that the 352nd Fighter Group gave their wingmen carte blanche to fire. On this mission, it seems Preddy's wingman, Sheldon Heyer, wasn't so much protecting Preddy's flank, but was firing on his own. Bill Wissner was Preddy's wingman on many occasions early in his career, and he too shot down aircraft while in that role. George lost a wingman, Lieutenant Crow, once when they split up to attack separate targets. The top three aces in the 352nd were Preddy, Meyer, and Wissner. They tended to fly close formations through the clouds. Despite concerns about foul weather, it turned out to be a beautiful day with high visibility. Having formed up, the entire 352nd Fighter Group flew over the North Sea towards a rendezvous with the bombers. Preddy's White Flight originally consisted of 4 aircraft. However, one of them had to turn back. Preddy was flying with Lieutenant Sheldon Heyer and Flying Officer Cy Doliak. Doliak joined the RAF in 1939. He had flown with RAF American Eagle squadrons and transferred to the 352nd just prior to D-Day. Bill Wissner had a revealing story to tell about how he was flying as Preddy's wingman when they were returning from a mission crossing the North Sea. Preddy was flying through flak, and Wissner radioed him to warn him several times, but Preddy didn't respond to the radio warnings. Apparently he had a habit of not responding. It's not clear whether his radio wasn't receiving or whether he just didn't care to respond. Wissner sped up and ducked off away from the coastal flak, but Preddy just continued to fly through it. Wissner thought that Preddy was just fearless when it came to things like flak and enemy aircraft. He didn't see it as a risk, but on that occasion Preddy was hit by flak. He had to bail out of his P-47 into the North Sea and was picked up by a Walrus aircraft. The fighters rendezvoused with the bombers near Hamburg. It was a 6-hour mission for the fighters. George Preddy was flying a P-51D-5, which was assigned to him around the 29th of June. Around June, K-14 gyro gun sights, which help with long distance and deflection shooting, began arriving. However, Preddy didn't use the K-14 gun sight until October with a new P-51. The fighters provided escort in loose groups of 1 or 2 flights, flying line abreast or single file, as it was difficult for a whole squadron to weave to stay with the bombers. George reported his story immediately after the mission, and then a couple of days later when he was interviewed by William Sheldon of CBS News Radio. The next part of this video uses George's own words from these 2 accounts. Our job was the usual one, escorting the bombers. We were meeting them near Hamburg, escorting them to their targets east of Berlin, and part of the way back. About 15 minutes after picking up the bombers, we saw 30 Me-109s come in for an astern attack on the 3rd box of B-17s. Our flight of 3 was the only protection around at the moment, although I was leading the group escort. We had altitude on the Jerry, so we went down after them. They saw us coming, and although they showed no intention of leaving the bombers alone, they did pull out to the left in evasive action. Came up on their tail, and each one of us picked out a Jerry. From about 300 yards, I gave mine a burst and set him on fire. I saw him go down in flames. They were trying to hold their formation, but were sending singles and doubles out to slip up on us from behind. Lieutenant Heyer and I continued our attack, and I dove up behind another enemy aircraft, getting hits around the wing root and setting him on fire after a short burst. He went spinning down, and the pilot bailed out at 20,000 feet. At about 26,000 feet, one that slipped out was trying to get on our tail and had to be dealt with by one of my wingmen, Cy Doliak. Lieutenant Heyer and I kept after the main formation. Lieutenant Doliak shot him off, then got lost chasing stray 109s. Lieutenant Heyer to my right and below me set another one on fire. Then Heyer had to leave me and take care of those strays from the enemy formation. The enemy formation stayed together, taking practically no evasive action, and tried to get back for an attack on the bombers, who were now off to the right. By this time, another single that had slipped out was down below me, with the idea of coming up under me. I throttled back and slipped behind him just as he started up. Right after giving him a short burst, he went into a spin and then fell apart. The Jerrys were intent on holding formation. I fired at another 109, causing him to burn after a short burst. He spiraled down to the right in flames. At this time, 4 other P-51s came in to help us out with the attack. It was now 5 of us against about 20 that were left in the formation, after they had sent out their decoys and counted their losses. Then they gave up on the bombers and went down in steep turns. I got a good burst into another one, causing him to burn and spin down. The enemy formation headed down in a left turn, keeping themselves together in rather close formation. As they started breaking their formation for the first time, our fighters scattered out in the chase. The enemy aircraft were down to 5,000 feet now, and one pulled off to the left. I was all alone with them now, so I went after this single 109 before he could get on my tail. I got a short burst at the Jerry but missed. It was just the 2 of us then, and after I missed, he had the edge on me. I went into a steep climb into the sun, and as he tried to follow me, I could see him firing everything he had. With my initial speed, I slightly outclimbed him. He couldn't stay with me in that climb and dropped off. Then it was my turn again. I got behind him, and he must have known his game was up. Before I could get in a shot, I saw him fumbling with the hood above his head and trying to get out. When I hit him, the plane quivered a bit and started down, but he was out by this time. So I saw him float down without bothering him. I had lost contact with all friendly and enemy aircraft. So I set my course for home. Here's a sick-looking George Preddy showing 6 aircraft shot down that August 6th day. Here's Cripes a Mighty Third. This is George's ground crew. This photograph is interesting. It shows the 46th Fighter Squadron of the 352nd Fighter Group with full D-Day markings. The D-Day stripes covered the aircraft letter, so the other 2 squadrons in the group moved the aircraft letter to the tail, but the 486 initially moved the aircraft letter to the front of the fuselage. Sometime after D-Day it may have been moved to the tail. This photo shows 352nd Fighter Group markings. The pilot in the middle is Sheldon Heyer. These are some of the aircraft George flew during the war. He had a long career, flying nearly 3 years. He had 25 missions against the Japanese flying P-40Es in Darwin, Australia, from March to October of 1942. He returned to the States and in February 1943 was assigned to the 352nd Fighter Group, where he flew P-47s and P-51Bs and Ds until he was killed in a friendly fire incident on Christmas Day, 1944. Hope you found this interesting.